deporting foreign offenders is quite a rarity in Britain. In fact, the numbers have come tumbling down. In 2016, we managed to deport about 6,500 foreign offenders, and now we're down to less than 2,000. Why is it, do you think, that the government finds it so difficult to deport foreign offenders?
Well, in relation to foreign offenders, I know that that's something that the Justice Secretary is very much focused on to get those numbers back up. Of course, we had a slightly strange period over the past couple of years. In relation to wider deportations, particularly, for example, in relation to the small boats which you were alluding to in your opening remarks, the landmark agreement that the Prime Minister has made with the Albanian Prime Minister means that there is a recognition now that Albania is essentially a safe country, which should make it much, much easier for us to start deporting Albanians again in the sort of large numbers that will help to get that number under control. We also hope that we'll make progress with the High Court decision tomorrow in relation to Rwanda. So we are taking actions across the board in relation to that.
At present, 55% of the asylum claims made by Albanians are granted. They're given a positive result by the British government. But you say things are going to change. Does that mean we're doing the wrong thing now, or that we will commit an injustice in the future?
Well, I think this has arisen because the courts, I think, have not been treating or indeed the determinations haven't been treating Albanian cases in the correct way. And I think we've had helpful progress through the discussions between the Albanian Prime Minister and our Prime Minister, and indeed at other levels, clarifying the status of Albania. I mean, Albania is, I believe, a member of NATO. It's aspiring to join the European Union. For the vast majority of people, it should be safe for them to be deported to Albania. And we've got the kind of assurances which will hopefully ensure that those determinations go the right way and those people can actually go back to Albania, which I think is what your viewers would expect. And it has been regrettable that over the past year or so there's been a big spike in the number of Albanians coming across on that route. Hopefully these measures will take that number back down again.
Well, what I hear is that many of them are using the Modern Slavery Act to pursue their claims, and that may be why so many of them are succeeding, getting a positive result from the British government. That was an act introduced by the Conservatives, I think, in 2015. It's a work of Theresa May. Was that act a mistake, and will it be repealed? I'd say two things. First of all, in relation to Albania, I do hope that the further agreement we've made will mean that in relation to Albania we have fewer of those cases. But you're right to raise the case of modern slavery. I don't think it was a mistake to introduce it, and there was a campaign, if you remember, by Frank Field and one embraced by Theresa May. Of course we need to stand up to modern slavery. However, I do think that some of the principles in that have been open to abuse, and I think you'll see in the legislation that comes forward next year, I say next year, it makes it sound a long time away, next month essentially, that we will address some of those abuses to make sure that we can make sure that people are returned in many cases where they're not at the moment. When I was in politics, I tended to try to steer clear of the immigration issue because it is so very, very sensitive. But if I were still a Conservative politician, I think, given the failure of the Conservatives to control the number of illegal immigrants coming into the country and the failure to remove them in significant numbers, I'd be very fearful of the electoral consequences of this. And in particular, I'd be worried about the rise of a new party set up precisely to steal votes from the Conservatives on this migration issue. To what extent does that occur to you?
Well, our first duty, and you'll remember from your time when you were a cabinet minister, of course, our first duty is to the country to make sure that we deal with the problems facing it. And it is simply unsustainable to have the kind of growth that we've seen in cross-channel movement. It's gone from a very, very small number to up to 44,000 this year. It continues on this trajectory. The numbers are going to get worse and worse. And that's why, since the Prime Minister came into office, literally, I know that pretty much the second day in office, he was on the case, getting into the detail of this. We have to get those numbers down, and the wider politics, as you know, reflects people's frustration. Now, we can deal with that. The reason for dealing with that is because it's the right thing to do. If we succeed in dealing with it, hopefully the voters will also recognise the steps that we're taking. And alongside
restoring stability to the economy and gripping the NHS. Those are the three big priorities of the Prime Minister going into next year.
I think many people will give Mr Sunak the benefit of the doubt because he is so new. But the Tories have been in for 12 years. How do you think the public should feel about your overall immigration record in that period?
Well, I think in relation to small boats, this is a phenomenon that has emerged. It really wasn't the case in the early years of the Conservative government at all. I served David Cameron as his Deputy Chief of Staff from 2010 to 2015. People were not using this as a route. Actually, I think probably this is a byproduct of some of the tougher measures we've taken, for example, in relation to people getting onto the Eurostar, the trains and the Eurotunnel, getting into the back of lorries and so on. We've cracked down on that, and there's another route now which we also have to deal with.